I told my midday guy to stop reading liners and give me personality. Lara, absolutely. But are you telling that midday personality what that means? Are you telling that midday personality what you want them to do, or you've got to be coaching them? Don't just say, give me personality. You've got to help them know how to do it and to do it smart. So a couple of questions. Why did stations stop creating and promoting specialty weekends? Programming weekends was fun, especially when we built those weekends around a normal playlist. The practice comes back. What to do with a station's major personality? If the practice comes back, what to do with the station's major personalities? In an upcoming workshop, and remember, we're going to start doing workshops in September. They're going to be shorter, and one of them is going to be on weekend programming and weekend promotions. But I will tell you that I believe there's several factors went into why stations stopped creating special weekend programming. One is because there was an overemphasis on being consistent and not being out of format, not doing something that the audience didn't expect. And I think there was a time and place where that programming philosophy worked. There was a time, if I were putting a new hot AC station on the air in the 90s and 80s and maybe even in the early 2000s, I wanted to make sure that my target listener, every time they pushed the button, got what they expected and got what we wanted them to hear. Well, if you take that philosophy to the extreme and you are so pure in your branding, you might, over a period of time, convince them that you are the hot AC station or the AC station or the top 40 station, the classic rock, whatever, the alternative station. You might convince them that you're the station that is providing that mood service, but you're not necessarily exciting them that much. You're not activating them. And I think there's a lot of programmers that took the whole branding and positioning principles to such an extreme that we stopped being interesting. That's number one. Number two is programming specialty weekends is hard. It takes time. And as stations and companies started to consolidate and one program director for 6 radio stations, who's got time to create a specialty weekend programming other than taking a syndicated product somewhere? And that's not specialty weekend programming, it's special programming, but how promotable is that? As opposed to doing something that really stands out and captures the moment and something that you can promote Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, or Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday anyway, leading up to that specialty weekend. So I think time got in the way of doing it. As time became a bigger factor, those weekend promotions that stations actually did were less special because we didn't devote the time and resources into making them stand out. And since they didn't stand out as much, we decided that they weren't working as well. So we stopped doing as many of them. They weren't as important to us. I think all of those things contributed. And I think it's time to turn back the clock a little bit and get back to doing special things on weekends, doing special things, especially on the 4th of July weekend or Labor Day weekend or long weekends. And I think there's a lot of things that you do that are complementary to your core brand and expand the images that the radio station has. So I think we got to be more special. I think we got to stand out. I think we got to stop being quite so rigid, do things that break the mold. Hallmark changes format every Christmas, and they start changing format earlier and earlier and earlier every year. They change format to the Christmas channel. It's Hallmark Christmas, and they do it Christmas in July now. They'll do it for a month. Well, they'll play Christmas movies. It works. It's specialty programming that is also compatible with and complementary to their core brand. So it can be additive to the position that you're trying to build if you're clever about it, but you do need to invest some time into it. Next question is, what's the best way to get management to buy into things that might be a little edgy? Boy, good luck with that. There are so many management types, whether it's market managers or corporate managers, that they are so worried about any complaint. They don't want that phone to ring. They don't want an advertiser to complain. Oh man, the car dealer didn't like something that you said this morning on the radio. What if they cancel? we can't afford to have them cancel. So stop saying anything that the car dealer doesn't like. And I think broadcasters in general have become so sensitive to strong feedback that all they hear are the complaints. All they hear are the negatives. They're just trying to stay out of trouble and keep their head above water. And I get the reasons why they're doing that, but that's playing defense. And all you're doing is curating a brand that is leaking listeners. And most of those listeners who are leaving radio are going someplace that is what? More provocative, more interesting, more exciting, and to some audiences, more offensive. Broadcast television has the same problem, by the way. Ever since all the streaming channels are getting a lot edgier, they're getting more provocative, they're getting more interesting. The series or movies that you see on broadcast television suddenly aren't as exciting as they used to be, are they? And they've fought back by creating more drama, creating more suspense, and doing some things that are out of character for what they used to do, but they're still not as edgy as what you might see on Hulu or Netflix or Amazon Prime. So it is a problem. I'm not saying that it's a problem that can be 100% solved, but we've got to get a thicker skin, and we've got to get bolder about really connecting with audiences and doing some things that will provoke a strong response. Next question is, how important do you think the music mix is in the current climate against the ever-growing number of streaming platforms where a user can choose their own music mix? I had a great discussion about this yesterday with one of my client stations, Ben. I don't think it's nearly as important as it used to be. I think I think the music mix is central to the success of a brand, but the message that is delivered as a result of the music mix is more important. So are listeners even listening long enough to get a really good sense of what your music mix is all about? Are they that concerned about how long it's been since the last time they heard a Doja Cat song? And as they keep punching the button and going from one streaming service to another, one Spotify channel to another, or playlist to another, one Sirius XM channel to another, one FM radio station to another, they don't even know what songs they heard on your station. So my advice would be to look for a collection of music that you can specialize in. And this is what we did in a brainstorming session with my client yesterday. We started looking for songs that the most likely fans of our brand are going to respond the strongest to. And the first question that came up from one of the programmers is, don't you think we should do a music test on this first? I said, no, you know what the hits are. We can go back and look at the hits at different times that appeal to the audience, and we're smart people. Let's put some of these songs on. Let's celebrate these songs. Let's make a big deal out of these songs. And let's measure it 3 months from now, 6 months from now. Then let's do a music test and find out what we should be playing more of, what we should be playing less of, and if this is going to work. And I think we're going to be doing some really interesting things on that radio station. But I don't want anyone to come away with this and say, Tracy says that the music mix isn't important. But I think that we should spend more time on worrying about how we're going to make the audience remember us, and less time about the science of making sure that sequencing is absolutely perfect. The more perfect it is, the better. But absolutely perfect is not nearly as important to me as resonating with what the collection of music represents. And what do you get when you add it all up? Next question is, what is the best way to maintain top of mind awareness on a midday show? When I think about what my listeners are doing between noon and 3, I realize my show is definitely background listening. As a programmer producer, how do I get them to bring my show to the forefront? I'm going to give you a homework assignment on this. You've probably heard of the stations in Canada that are engaging the audience and doing conversational radio. It's the Pattison Media Group, and the flagship for this format is in Edmonton at 99.7 Now. There's also Today FM in Calgary. And there's a couple of others on in Canada. Those are the two I would recommend. Go listen to those stations. Listen to them in different day parts. Listen to how they engage the audience. They have real personalities talking to real people. They still play a lot of music. They're not playing 12 songs an hour, but they're playing 8 to 10 every hour. And they're making a big deal out of the music. They're celebrating the music. They're connecting with the music. It is such a well-run, integrated approach to personality radio around the clock that's the best thing that I can tell you to go do. Now, this takes courage, because if you do a research project on your audience in your market, you're going to find that if you ask listeners, what would you like? Would you like radio personalities who don't talk very much and play a lot of music, or those who talk a lot and play little music? Or would you like a balance in between? What do you think they're going to say? They're going to say, we want somebody who shuts up and just plays the music. Well, what they've just described is a streaming channel. So how are you going to win over a streaming channel? They don't have any DJs. They're not talking at all. And they're not playing commercials. You're playing commercials. That's the number one off ramp. You're talking. That's the number two off ramp. So since you play commercials and since you do talk, how are you going to do it in a way that has the best chance to stand out and be unique, to be different, and to attract people by being much more top of mind? How are you going to do that? That's key. And that's what some of these stations are doing, and are doing it, not only doing it very well, doing it very successfully. We did it at my stations here in San Diego in the 90s and 2000s at Star 100.7. It was a juggernaut radio station. It works, but it takes a commitment to personality. It takes a different approach. It takes a commitment to promotion, and it takes a commitment to doing things a little bit differently. Question is, I love your point about advertising your station. What's the best way to advertise your station other than on the radio? I think there's a lot of them. I think the most efficient way to advertise right now is on social media, to get in timelines. And especially if you can lead them from those timelines to sample some of your most unique and top of mind content. If you do a prank call in the morning, or if you do an interesting topic and you can promote to get to listen to that topic on demand. If you're in a metered market, you can get ratings credit for that, number one. So it's definitely got a cause and effect, but it's highly efficient, and you can target exactly the right types of audiences. But it definitely takes a budget to do some boosted posts. It doesn't take a big budget. If you could spend $50 a day, $250 a week, $1,000 a month, you can reach quite a few people, and you'll probably find some meter carriers, some diary keepers in there. So I would definitely look at advertising online. Do what your advertisers are doing. A lot of your advertisers are going away from television and direct mail and billboards and traditional media because they can target their audience on social media. You can too. And I would absolutely start doing that a lot more. Next question. I'm a big advocate for recyclers to remind listeners of top of mind awareness of a morning show. I find morning shows get lazy about updating them. Should they be updated daily? I'll stop right there. Yes. Can they run longer than one day? No. Should we have a kill date of 24 hours? Yes. Not open for debate. Look, I have such little patience with morning shows who are lazy about you running free advertising for them. Most strong performing morning shows only have about 35% of the station's cume that listens to them in the morning. 35%. That's a good performing morning show. I've seen it as low as 15, 17%. I've seen it as high as 55 to 60%. But a very large percentage of the station's total cume never listens to the morning show. Why would you not want to advertise to those people? They're people who already like your radio station. Why wouldn't the morning show take that seriously when your advertisers are spending a lot of money to advertise to those people? And they are a captive audience who already likes something that the radio station does. I would tell the morning shows, I'm not going to promote you unless you update them and you make them exciting and you give me a reason to listen tomorrow morning. not just what you did this morning, because what can I do with that? Other than give me a link where I can go listen to it on demand if you're in a metered market, because I get ratings credit for that. But get them to a place where they're experiencing the show, they're experiencing the radio station, and you start creating some habits. I would have no patience with them. And I would take those promos away from them and invest it in something else, unless or until they get creative with it. They take it seriously. They update them every day. I think it is absolutely key. And what a waste of time and effort and airtime to be giving that commercial, that 30 seconds or 40 seconds or however long that happens to be, that you might as well run it's a commercial for your morning show. If they're not going to take it seriously, you might as well get paid for it and run another commercial for the grocery store. So I feel really, as you can tell, I feel really passionate and very strongly about that. And make sure there's a call to action in it. Something for me to do, not just listen because we're awesome and we'll be on again tomorrow, but give me something, give me a reason to tune in tomorrow morning at a specific time for a specific thing. How do you balance mainstream conversations with listeners via social media platforms during a show and getting them to engage with the show and on-air content? Great question. We're going to attack this in a workshop. Again, we're going to start this in September. We're going to be starting to do some workshops. I'm going to put that on the list because it's there's some things that I believe are right and wrong about how a lot of stations are approaching social media. And social media, I think, is really important, but I don't think you should have a social media strategy. I think you should have a brand strategy that uses social media. And I think that we get it backwards a lot of times, and it ends up become wagging the dog. I've got a handful of stations who I think are really doing it well. A morning show that will go on social media today and promote what they're doing tomorrow and start a conversation on social media to build anticipation for it. There's so many things that we can do with that. It promotes a topic we're doing at a specific time. It engages the social media audience into having conversations about it. So it's almost like doing free research to find out how this is going to happen when we do it on the air tomorrow. It gets people talking, and we can instant message them and say, hey, we'd love to put you on the air. Can we call you tomorrow morning and have you be part of this conversation? So it starts some things going. And after the fact, when you've got audio from what you did on the air with it, you've got a piece of audio and video that you can recycle back around and play it on social media and drive people to social media or to your website to hear it in retrospect. So when you look at it holistically like that, is how can I take advantage of this great content that I'm creating, make it as popular and as visible as I possibly can? In what ways can I make this more famous? It will energize your social media and online efforts. And it will also help feed what you're doing on the air. It should become a snowball. I look at a radio station's brand as being more holistic than a lot of stations do. I think we should have a great brand strategy that includes what we do over the air. It includes what we do online. It includes what we do on social. It includes what we do in the community. All of those are different aspects of it, but the mothership is what we do on the air. And all of it should be centered around that. We've got one more question in the queue. I'm going to take that question, and if there are no more, we'll wrap it up here. But if you have more questions and you want to keep asking them, ask away now. Consider this your 2-minute warning that if no more questions come in, we're going to wrap it up here in just a second. Question or comment here says, I fear too many people are under false pressure for being short-staffed. What a great point from Kipper McGee. Yep, Kipper. Too many people are under false pressure by being short-staffed. Any tips for staying creative under pressure? I've got a lot of thoughts on this, and I don't want to presume that the pressure is not real. I know that the pressure is real. I do. I know that you've got more on your to-do list every day than you've ever had before. It's not just radio, it's the world. Everybody's in the same situation. Everybody is more is asked of everybody in every industry today than has ever been asked of people in the past. Don't let that become an excuse. Don't let that become an excuse for not being great, for not doing the things that will make you stand out, that will prevent you from being top of mind. Was on a call earlier this week with a client who's got a very simple show. It's an easy to execute show. We're not doing very much. If you're familiar with how we coach our talent, is the 5 stages of growth, of personality growth. You go from stage 1, which is introduction, stage 2, which is familiarity, stage 3 is growth, stage 4 is like, and stage 5 is love. How you behave on the air varies based on where you are in the personality success path. This show is either in stage 1 or stage 2, introduction or familiarity. We've stripped so many things out of the show where we've got just a 3 key features that we basically repeat and promote aggressively every hour. It's really a very easy show to execute. There's 3 people working on the show, including a full-time producer. And they're complaining that they can't get this done because so much is expected of them. So what you said in your question, Kipper, about the false pressure for because they're short-staffed, feeling this false pressure. Yes, it's pressure. There's a lot of expectation that we've put on this show. There's a lot of expectation that we have that this has to be great, that we're putting a priority on really cutting through so the audience gets it. But guess what? You got time to do it. There's time to create this, so prioritize. If you can't get everything done, and I get being short-staffed, and I get being overworked, and I get being overtasked, and I get not being able to be great at everything that you do, don't try to be perfect. Be great at fewer things. Be great at one thing and make it really, really resonate. Follow-up question to that just came in and says, how long should morning shows be around in the building? Getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning can be tiring, and there's resistance to hang around into the afternoon from talent, but there are fewer people around to do the workload in every radio station now. I believe that shows need to be fully engaged in doing anything it takes to be a success. You're going to be a great actor. You're a great musician, a great stand-up comic. How much time are you going to put into your craft to be great at it and to succeed? It's not a 6 to 10 o'clock job. It's not a 5 a.m. to 11 a.m. job. The days where a personality can get by doing the 4 and hit the door and expect to win are over. It's not going to happen. The bar is too much high, is raised much more. It's a full-time job. I sympathize and I empathize with personalities who come in at 4 o'clock in the morning, you go on the air at 5:30 or 6. They're off at 9 or at 10, and they're still in the building at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock, and the sales department wants them to come to a meeting at 3 o'clock. I think that's asking too much. I don't think you can keep up that pace. The job is you start working for the mechanics of that job rather than for the creativity of it. But there's a balance somewhere in the middle. And I don't think it's asking too much of anybody to come in and work a full day, to work a 7 or 8 or 9 hour day of doing whatever it takes to succeed, not just for the station, but for yourself, for your character, for your personality, for your show, for your personal brand, for your career. Invest in it. What does it take? What does it take to be successful? Now, there's a difference in doing those things that are adding to your career, adding to your show, adding to the station, and adding to real success, and just being busy to get everything done. I think that when you ask entertaining people, creative people, to do a lot of mechanical things, and it's just a lot of things that are ticking the box and checking things off the list, think that's difficult. I think it's difficult to sustain. I don't think it's fair. I do think it's fair to ask creative people to invest in that creativity and do whatever it takes to make that show and make that entertainment successful. It's got to be a passion. It can't be a job. It's got to be a passion. So I hope that makes sense. One more question just came in. With listening occasions being as low as 7 minutes now, it seems like we can recycle our content a lot, but how do we keep the show fun and interesting and exciting for the talent executing it? This is also going to be a workshop, and this is a great question because one of the reasons we're going to start doing these workshops that is to demonstrate how you can actually do some of these things instead of talking about the philosophy behind it and the reasons behind it. And in one of the upcoming workshops, we're going to show you how you can take one topic and make it last 4 hours and have it never get old. Yes, you can do that. I'm not saying you should do that, but you can take one topic, and it comes through show prep. With any topic that has legs, there will be multiple aspects of that topic. There'll be subtopics that are buried inside of it. There'll be different emotions. There'll be different angles. There'll be different points of view, all of which can be explored with a subtopic. So every time you come back around to it, either the storyline progresses and you're onto a different leg of it now, or you are introducing the same story, the same topic, with a completely different angle. So it takes on a different complexion. And there's some real creative ways of doing that. And I showed that in the recent show prep seminar that's available on demand now, that you can check out on insidersradionetwork.com or at tjohnsonmediagroup.com. It's exploring one topic from a lot of different angles, getting into a lot of different emotions. So I demonstrated it there, but that's something that we're going to start doing in workshops. And it comes down to being creative. Yes, the talent. Yeah. The last part of your question was about how you keep the talent, how you keep it interesting and exciting for the talent that executes it. Here's the thing with that. Who are you doing it for? Are you doing it for the talent, or is the talent doing it for their craft? How does a band get excited about playing their hits night after night after night on a tour? How does Paul McCartney at 80 years old get excited about doing a 3.5-hour concert every night, playing Beatles songs that he's been playing for like 60 years? How do you get excited about that? It's because you're doing it for the fans. You're doing it for the audience. You're not doing it for your own enjoyment. Remember a quote from Johnny Cash. Johnny Cash said that he went through a phase where he was so bored with his own songs that he stopped doing them in concert and only wanted to do his new stuff. And he realized that when he started doing the new stuff, people stopped coming to his concerts. And he said, I had to figure out a way to get excited about singing I Walk the Line again. How do you think a Broadway actor feels? Somebody who's been in Hamilton for a decade now? Hamilton's been on Broadway for about that long. And they do it night after night after night, sometimes multiple performances per day, delivering the same lines at the same time in the same venue with the same cast. And it doesn't vary at all. They're doing it exactly the same way every day, singing the same songs, delivering the same lines. How do they do it? Because they're pros, because they're doing it for the audience. And they recognize that the audience who's seeing this now is seeing it, most of them, for the first time. It's brand new to them. It's not repetitive to the audience. It's only repetitive to the actors. It's only repetitive to the concert performers. You get asked the same questions. Professionals get asked the same questions over and over and over. How would you feel working in a fast food place? What if you're a hamburger flipper working at McDonald's? They get asked the same questions over and over every single day. But it's the first time that customer has asked that question. So they can't answer it by being disinterested. They've got to act like it's the first time they've ever heard that. Radio performers have to figure out how to do that too. The great ones can do it. The great ones know how to turn that on and how to generate that internally. I worked with one remarkable personality. It's a female co-host on a really dynamic radio station. And a lot of times personalities say that they want to be surprised. They want to be spontaneous. Don't rehearse this. I want to be completely surprised on the air. That way you get my natural reaction. She doesn't want to be surprised because she used to be a performer. She was a concert performer. She was a musician. She was an artist. She wants to know everything about her audience. She wants to know everything about her venue. She wants to know what her set list is going to be. She wants to know what her stories are going to be between the songs. She wants to know what to expect from the crowd. She wants to know how many people are going to be there, because she has learned that she can fake it like it's the first time she's ever performed it. And she brings that to the radio show too. And one of the things that I've learned from her is that the more she knows about what is going to happen on the radio, the better she gets in performing it, because she can pretend like it's the first time that she's ever heard it. Radio personalities are performers or actors playing a role on the air in short doses. You got to get comfortable with that. And you got to realize you're not doing it for you. You're doing it for the audience. Another comment here: recycle your content live. Don't do it recorded, and you'll craft the moment each time with more precision in the jokes. You're absolutely right. 100%. I got a station I'm working with now that does a feature that was very popular. We were doing it in the 7 o'clock hour. And it was very popular. We're getting 2 or 3 breaks out of it, and listeners were calling about it. We did some research. We found out that it was becoming very popular. And so we said, let's start doing this in the 6 o'clock and the 8 o'clock hour too. Same story, same scenario, different phone calls. And what we found is that when we did it in the 6:30, the 6:30 to 6:45 break were pretty good. But we got great phone calls that we could then harvest and use at 7:30, 7:45, 8:30, 8:45. And it's just picked up momentum because we're exposing it to a different audience. And every time the show does that episode, they get better at doing it because they rehearsed it. They know what to expect. And we change the angle on it just enough to where it's interesting and it's different. So for the audience, if you've already heard the 6:30 segment, you're going to hear a familiar story, but you're going to hear different phone calls, and you're going to hear a slightly different angle on it. And you're going to hear personalities who were engaged with it, but they can't get bored with it. A funny thing happens when you start having success on the radio. You start doing content a little bit differently. You start recycling more. Ratings start to get better. Bonus checks start to come in. Talent starts to like doing those things a little bit more. Funny how that works, isn't it? Bonus checks are a great cure for everything.